Welcome back to the channel. Today I have a pair of rings sent out by Discovery Optics. These are a Picatinny pair that are 1.26 inches high. These happen to be the 34 millimeter variant. They're advertised as the 7075 AL's Picatinny profile. I'm gonna go ahead and open the package and show you what you get when you order one of these pairs of rings. As you can see here, everything comes neatly packaged, clipped into place. And each set is going to have a spare piece of hardware in there, which is handy if you have a black floor to your shop or your garage, wherever you work on your firearms. The rings themselves look pretty robust, and they do use Torx hardware, which I sincerely appreciate. It does come with a wrench in there if you do not own one or you don't have bits for that. So you don't need more tools. You don't need to go purchase anything. It's going to come with what you need other than your optic. There is a hollowing out kind of in the middle. It's like a type of skeletonizing, yet it does retain the internal mass as a pillar in between. If you can see right here, this cutout is a bit of a weight savings, but internally there is a sliver of a pillar in between, which is going to give some rigidity for, at least torsional rigidity for the rings. And that can make a bit of a difference, I think. There's going to be less likelihood of any fracture if you're putting these on something heavy duty, like maybe a 338 or just even a 308. So it's nice to see that there's some thought process there. It'd be easier just to drill it all the way through and hammer them out quickly, but I think these have been machined a little bit tighter than most of the rings that you're used to from China. Internally, you can see that there is some buffing that's gone on to make sure they're uniform and have a good grab on your optic. A couple other cool accessories you're going to see. Well, first of all, it's only 2 to lock it down. I appreciate that. And on top, it's only 2 per side. I don't prefer 3-part or 3 Torx tops, if I can think of the word here. The type that have 3, it's just more than is necessary. I found that 2 can usually get it done just fine. Another thing that can be nice is when rings don't have any sort of label, you might wonder, if you have a lot of rings like I do, you might wonder what the inch pounds was for that model or what size they are if you can't tell by eyeballing it. And this labels that these are 34 millimeter rings. It also labels the height, and it also says the inch pounds for your torque wrench or your fat wrench for actually attaching this to your Picatinny rail, which is going to be a single slot, a single pillar underneath. You can see that there. Okay, just to give you a feel for what these are going to look like on a Picatinny rail, I've got my Discovery ED-PRS. This is the 5-25. It's actually the Gen 2. I've had the Gen 1 and the Gen 2. And I'm going to attach it on this Picatinny rail. I'm going to back these off a little bit. I always suggest that once you get to rings, if you have a torque wrench for the sides and the top, use a torque wrench. I do not have a torque wrench right now, but I'm pretty familiar with the stats and the torque tension, the pressure it requires to do that safely. And so I'm going to recommend that you either buy a torque wrench or familiarize yourself with those numbers. So it's 20 inch-pounds on top, but first I'm going to take these off. So I'm looking at a nice polished surface in here. Another thing that I always appreciate is that these rings actually have a midpoint post inside of the tops of the rings that are going to engage the bottoms. So any of that pressure going back and forth is not going to be directly compressed against the threads going in. They're going to help. They're going to take some effort, but the posts themselves will help align and also take a little bit of the pressure. So obviously you can check out online some of the Discovery options for leveling, because they have some leveling kits and tools that would work with Picatinny. But right now, I'm just giving you a demonstration of how this is going to line up. So now, if I was to tighten these down, the order of operations for me is I'm going to do 1 here, 1 here, 2 on this side, 2 on this side, back and forth. And I'm going to make a crisscross pattern going between the numbers there in an order, a little bit at a time, just to make sure that it doesn't get canted or tilted too much. And then also I'm going to be careful, like I said before, about torque pressure on the scope itself so that the scope body doesn't get crushed, and I also don't overstress the rings, although these seem very beefy. And if you have more questions about these, you can actually check out their listing and the link that I have down in the comments.